Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
I was just bragging on Chevy in the commercial break with Bill. We love those folks over there. Thank you. Thank you for your support for the show. Okay, so the question is, and we may have talked about this in the past before.
I bet we have.
Preferred way that you like to throw spinners is a question for steelhead.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of things that can come into play, but nobody's opinion matters more than your own. So is there a time that you would prefer a spinning reel as opposed to a bait caster when you're throwing a spinner for steelhead? Let's use my river as a river to think about, the Deschutes.
The Deschutes. Okay, remember the Deschutes is full of ledges.
Lots.
That is a tackle-eating you-know-what, right?
Yep.
And that's why back in the day we used like fat spoons, like steelies and what. We don't want things that sink. Well, spinners float nice. Spinners are a wonderful choice in there for that reason. And you don't want to use, it's a big river. Can't fish out of a boat. You got to make long casts, right? But if you go to like a number 5 or even larger, something that could get you out there, you're going past the attraction threshold, we call it, and you're going to spook them probably more than hook them. So you want to stay small, 3s and 4s.
All right, and here's a size 4 Blue Fox just for reference.
Right, and that's an ideal size. It's perfect. Now that one, if you have light line, like 8-pound test or the whatnot, you can use that as is. It's got enough weight. Throw it and allow it to sink and whatnot. You want to fish that thing with the current. You don't want to swing it like a spoon. You throw it above your position, allow it to drop. Your mind's eye thinks, okay, I'm close, tighten up, feel your blade start, and then follow it. And while reel's telling you want that blade just to blip, blip, blip. You don't want it really cranking with the current. That's how you properly present those
Now,
things.
do you like doing that with a spinning reel and a bait caster? Because they're going to present very different.
I know. Well, if you throw this on a bait caster, you have to be the most talented thumb in the world. And no one's that good, especially if you get a little breeze.
Well,
Well, yeah, you know what happened. Well, look where you are, right? The Deschutes. Hello. By 11 o'clock, it's parasailing time, right?
Yes, it can be.
Right? So I will use a spinning reel.
Okay.
Because it eliminates the backlash problem. I don't like it as well as a level wind because I'm more direct, you know, but I fish my drag a little tighter for a hook set and then flip her back real fast when I get the fish on.
Sure, gotcha.
But if you go to bigger stuff, like say you're throwing a number 5, all right, now the level wind will come into play. And I'll even put like a split shot, a small split shot, a foot or so above it for a little extra weight so I can get some distance. Okay. And I went to the thought that if a fish is going to take a number 4, it's going to hit a number 5.
Okay.
They don't come up to it and go, whoa, did you see that? It was that much too big. I'm not eating it. So I'll go to a 5 usually because I can throw it further. I can really feel the thump a lot better with either spinning reel or level wind. Right. I'll go with number 5, and if I have to tone it down, I'll take a black marker or whatnot. I'll use different smaller tones, but I rarely use small spinners for steelhead or salmon because you're looking for an aggressive fish anyway, and he's not going to make the challenge of no big or not.
Right. Like a 5 is too big. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to chase it and then just stop.
I see guys throwing number 6s.
Right.
And do quite well. It's because they're confident, they're putting in the right place, the right time, and the flash is about the same. Look at the size of a plug, okay? A 3.5 mag lip is that big. Well, a number 5 spinner is not as big as a mag lip, and they'll hit that. So what do you feel comfortable throwing? And it's all about presentation and color.
Sure, and keeping it in where the fish are, right? You need to be able to present it where the fish are. They'll come up for a spinner. They'll absolutely come up for one. So I got to ask this question then. So in the end, y'all know I am absolutely bait caster only for all situations throwing a spinner, except really small spinners. Like for trout or whatever else, I'll go to a smaller or to a spinning setup. When you're throwing a spinning reel, let's see that rod too, by the way.
Ooh.
When you're throwing a spinner with a spinning reel setup, you can't thumb it, right? So you can finger that thing so that it doesn't dump line, but how do you, we all know, at least if you spent a lot of time fishing a spinner, you got to be able to keep that thing down there, and sometimes that means you got to dump a little bit of line to help it get down, stop the line so it lifts it back up, keep it off the bottom. How do you like to manipulate the reel to keep that spinner in one spot? If you can't thumb it, how do you like to do that?
Well,
because it's a challenge.
I go for a little extra work. I'll keep the bail open, let it feed, and throw it back. Okay. And it's coming up. I feel it. Throw it open, feed it a little bit. throw it back. Because I want that thing engaged. I don't want it open a lot. If I'm feeding, and I get bit, oh, that's a night, because now you got to grab a line and all this, and you're up here going, and by then he's gone. Yeah. And so I like to keep in contact, keep my drag tight, and keep this bail closed as much as possible when you're fishing a spinner.
Would you say that if somebody's watching that hasn't really gotten in a spinner, listen, number one, it's one of the most effective ways to catch summer steelhead in particular that you're ever going to come across. If it's a spinner or a spoon, that is literally, I mean, there's a lot of ways to catch them, but it is undoubtedly, if you can fish it the right way, you're going to pretty much outfish everyone that's out there. It's been proven.
Well, you think about, we call the attraction threshold, okay? Sure. That's got flash, whereas you might have a badass jig, you might have a great bait or whatnot, but it's only got a little attraction threshold, maybe a couple of feet around it, they can see it. Once you start throwing flash out there, triple it.
Right.
Now they can see it further away, and fish this time of year, the warmer water, they're super aggressive. Yeah. Just get it close. Hand grenades and horseshoes.
Would you call throwing a spinner with a spinning reel rod setup easier in the wind? Because you mentioned that the Deschutes in a lot of rivers in the afternoon, especially on the east side, the wind will start to kick up, and it's very difficult, like you mentioned, with the bait caster to punch it into the wind, depending on what the wind's doing. You might get lucky and it's coming from your back. It just never seems to do that.
Right.
Would you say, so if somebody is new at throwing a spinner for the first time, because there's a lot of folks that are going to do this, would a spinning rod setup be the way to go?
Absolutely. That is just death waiting to happen in the wind.
I love how he describes that.
But even so, with a spinning, a spinner is a parachute.
Yeah.
When it goes out there, that blade flipping around, it's catching all kinds of wind, and it slows over half the speed. Tip speed when it left, when you cast, is going half the speed or less when it gets to the water.
True.
Slows way down. And when something slows down like that, a level wind is not your friend suddenly, but a spinning rod allows that to happen, no sweat. So if it's windy, go to a spinning rod.
Gotcha.
Don't fight it.
And if you're new, start out with that spinning rod and just mind's eye. You mentioned the mind's eye.
Mind's eye.
Keep that spinner one way or the other. Do what you have to do in order to get it there. That foot and a half off the bottom. And if you're not feeling the tick every so often, you don't know where bottom is. You got to get that spinner down, find the bottom, and then keep it in that zone somewhere. But don't keep it there too long.
No.
Because you won't have that spinner all that long.
Our greatest friend has been braid.
Oh, it helps out a lot.
I mean, you can feel the tiny blades. What you can feel feels like a number 5 with a 3 blade.
Right.
The movement and the thump transfers is called fishing in high def.
Last question I got to ask you.
Okay.
You mentioned braid as your line to fish with a spinner spoon. Do you put a bumper on there of mono or anything, or you run it straight too?
I'll run, when I'm running steelhead, I'll run 30-pound usually. Something I can see, real nice and visual, so I can see the line move. I know right where it's at. I know if I'm in structure or too far away or too close or whatnot. That tells me where I am. I'll run usually a rod's length, whatever rod I'm using, 9-foot, 9-foot bumper of Maxima. Ultra green, for example, I'll run standard issue for me, summer all along is 30-pound braid, 12-pound ultra green.
Okay.
And I'll unit out to that, and if you do hang up, that breaks, and you don't leave any braid in the water.
Gotcha. Oh, good point. Because that is certainly something, especially on some of those rivers that are very fragile.
It's also a shock absorber. The mono stretches a little bit, so it allows for a little give. Right. So yeah, you want to do that.
Good point. Pay attention. For that individual that asked that question last night, hopefully that answers your question for you. Lots of different ways that you can go when you're talking about rods. 9-foot, 9.6 or something like that is what I like. How about yourself? You like shorter or longer rods?
Well, if I'm fishing on big water, I want more tip speed. I want to be able to reach things. And with a longer rod, you can keep more line out of the water, longer presentations. It's a way to go. 9.5, 10.5, anything in there is fine. But if you go on smaller water, for example, on good old 8.5-foot rod works great.
Right.
And even on the big water, if that's what you feel comfortable with, use it.
Very good. Great advice from Bill Herzog himself. All right, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, we got another segment to hang out with Bill. We're going to let's talk some trout fishing.
Yeah, okay.
And silvers, because silvers are coming, and you love to twitch for them as well. We'll get some of that advice from Bill in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.